Welcome, and thanks to everyone for being here today. Connecting the Dots, Planet People Power was launched by Unitarian Universalist Justice Ohio in September 2021. We meet monthly to provide a platform for issues of environmental justice, along with actions that can be performed during each meeting. Our monthly topics are driven by you and the immediate areas of environmental justice that you are confronting right now. You can learn more about UUJO at uujo.org. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. That's from the EPA. Today's topic is community gardens, food justice, resilience, and mitigation of food deserts in our community. And I'll turn it over to Linda New for some opening words.
All right, and this is from Justice on Earth. One of the most vital tasks in these times is to imagine alternatives to continuing business as usual, alternatives that offer us a way off the path of ecological destruction and also reject the unjust and oppressive realities of the dominant system in favor of a resilient and life-sustaining society. When we practice the 4 R's, resistance, resilience, restoring, reimagining, every act is a way of evoking, forming, and reforming an alternative community. And that is by Peggy Clark and Matthew McHale, an essay in Justice on Earth.
And I'd like to introduce you to Pam Roberts. Pam is the Executive Director of Together We Grow Gardens, Community Gardens. She and her husband, Mike, started the organization with one community garden in 2012. That first garden not only produced healthy and delicious food, but it also brought the community together in a special way and provided unexpected opportunities for mentoring the many children and families that participated. In 10 years, Together We Grow has expanded to 6 community gardens and 7 school gardens. They have 24 by 24 solar powered greenhouse that is the home of Here We Go Gardens program for adults with developmental disabilities. The nonprofit continues to grow in ways they never dreamed possible. Although Pam isn't as physically involved in the garden work now, she spends most of her time managing the growing staff, writing grants to fund the ever-expanding nonprofit, and passionately sharing about this organization in schools, churches, and other community or civic organizations. So I'd like to turn it over to Pam, who has a PowerPoint to share with us.
Okay, let me get down here and share. Slideshow from the beginning. Let me first say that thank you for having me. I absolutely love to talk about Together We Grow Gardens. It totally was not going to be what it is now when I started out. My husband and I, my daughter was on staff at Newark Church of the Nazarene in 2011. And the house, we had 3 separate locations for our church, and they were all in low income areas of Newark. We had an opportunity to, we had a piece of property, the church did, and that was going to be like a mega church kind of thing. And they decided that they made a decision to stay in the neighborhoods where the people really needed assistance. And so we have this little church over on the east side, and I noticed that I was teaching a class with my pastor and over there at Real Life Church, and I realized that the house was empty, the parsonage was empty, and I asked him, my husband and I had filed bankruptcy, and we lost our house in 2008 when everything kind of crashed. And I can kind of look back and almost feel like God sort of worked that out, because we would never have been able to do this. We would not have been able to move into the little church's house. But I said, how would you feel about us moving into the house, and we will cut the grass and clean the church and do all that kind of stuff, and we'll get to know the neighbors. And he said, oh, that sounds like a great idea. So that's what we got to do. And it was an eye opener like I've never had before. I didn't think that I had certain preconceived ideas of people on food stamps and people who live in poverty, but apparently I did, because I was shocked to see that there were some places where two people were working full time, two adults in the family were working full time, and they still didn't have enough money for food for the whole month. And I saw people living in horrible housing conditions who were afraid to say anything to their landlord because they thought they might get evicted. And it was like the powerful were sort of ruling over the people who didn't have any power. And I just saw it so many times. Like, one of the girls was getting her electricity turned off and we were trying to help her. And that's the person from AEP said, if you knew a little bit of math. And I got on the phone, I'm like, why are you talking to her like that? I have never been talked to like that in my life. I went to drug court with one of the girls that moved. She got out of prison after 8 years and we became good friends. And she was going to drug court every Monday. And I went with her for about 6 months. And we went to the clerk of courts to pay some of her fines off. And she was talked to brutally there. And again, I'm like, I can't believe you just talked to her like that. She's just a customer. You should think of her as a customer and not, like a lowlife or whatever. So anyway, just a lot of things that I didn't realize were going on. They actually love their kids just as much as I did and want good things for their families, whether they can provide them or not. So it's just been interesting, the realizations of things that I didn't understand before. So the first year that we were there, we were on the planning team for the church, or the leadership team, I guess they call it. And they asked if we would be interested in starting a garden so we could get to know the neighbors. So there was this piece of property across the street from the house that we lived in. It was 50 by 150. And we found the homeowners or the property owners and asked them, and they were like, sure, that'd be fine. Just do it as long as you want to. They came over and mowed it like once a year. And there was garbage. We probably took out 20 bags, big leaf bags full of garbage. And that there was one little boy that asked me if I found his red sweatshirt. I'm like, no, I didn't find your red sweatshirt. We found stuff in the ground like dishes and old toys and car parts. I mean, there was just everything was out in that garden that just had been accumulating for years and years. Glass, needles, there was all kinds of stuff. So we started this little garden and got to know our neighbors. And at one point, I used to be a suicide prevention coordinator for Mental Health America, and I've dealt with mental health issues my whole life. And my daughter was killed in a car accident in 1999, and I just about committed suicide. And I actually went to the doctor, and he started me on some medication that turned my whole life around. It just made me where I didn't have this black cloud over my head all the time anymore. And so I started thinking, other people need to know this. So I started doing suicide prevention with Mental Health America and going in and talking to kids about it. So the people from juvenile court knew who I was. And so these two little boys that lived next door to the church, they were 10 and 11, and their two brothers were probably in their early 20s, and they were in prison for murdering a pizza delivery guy probably 10 years before that. So it's probably 20 years ago now. And the 10-year-old broke into a gun store, and he was assigned 80 hours of community service, and juvenile court asked me if I would do it. And so that's what I did. I worked with him all summer. This was the unexpected things that happened that summer. We were painting, Ryan and I were painting fences and painting the garden shed and all this kind of stuff. And he asked me why my husband and I don't hit each other. And I was just, I said, everybody doesn't do that, and I started realizing he did not know that everybody doesn't do that. He thought that's how every household was. And so I thought, this is really a good opportunity for mentoring and showing a different way of life. And then his brother, who's 11, was getting in all kinds of trouble. And I said, if you end up in prison too, you're going to break your mom's heart. And he said, at least I'll get 3 meals a day. And so those two conversations really started Together We Grow. I just knew there was more that needed to be done. So let's kind of get into here. So here's how we got our start. And I'm going to show you a few pictures here in a little bit of our gardens, but this is kind of a timeline I was doing here yesterday. Sometimes I said, as before, sometimes we had to overcome other people's reputations of people who said they were going to do something and didn't, or one place, this organization let these group used their property and they were shooting the deer so the deer wouldn't eat their gardens, and they were also growing marijuana back in the woods. So it's like, no, we're not going to do that kind of stuff. We're just here to feed people. We started in 2012. We started this goal of getting to know our neighbors, and those two little boy conversations really changed everything. So in 2013, I talked to the city and they let us start a garden over at Everett Park, which was really run down. There had been a murder there, suicide, graffiti, all covered everything over there. They had the worst playground equipment I've ever seen in my life for the kids in that neighborhood. The bathrooms, I mean, it was just, the whole place was disgusting, but we started a little garden there. And within a year, we had probably 20 regular gardeners, and the place started feeling more family friendly, just like our other garden did. So in 2014, we knew we were going to need some money. And so we decided to become a nonprofit, which is an interesting process. If any of you know anything about that, it's just, it was very complicated. So we became a nonprofit. In 2015, we started working with Newark City schools on a small scale. And the teachers that we worked with just absolutely loved us. And so, it kind of started, people called us and asked if we could start one at their school. So the next big thing we did is in 2017, I raised $70,000 to build our 24 by 24 foot greenhouse at Heritage Middle School. And that brought together all of the funders for this ribbon cutting ceremony. And I think everybody finally, I think it was the superintendent of schools. He said, when Pam Roberts calls, I just say, give her whatever she wants, would you please? I think I was annoying the heck out of everybody. So what we do is we rent garden beds for $10 for the whole summer. And they get a 4x8 bed. We provide the tilled plot. We provide the water for free. And every year, actually, we've provided seedlings, seeds for sure, because we get seeds donated to us. And then we start tomatoes, and we give each gardener 3 tomato plants and 3 pepper plants for their 4x8 bed. The only reason we charge anything is I didn't really even want to charge anything, but I see the wisdom in it now, is that that doesn't even come close to covering the expenses we put into getting those gardens ready, but it makes people have sort of a feeling of ownership. And so they take better care of their gardens. If anybody even gives me a hint that they can't afford it, they don't have to pay for it. Now I'm just going to show you a few pictures. This is our first garden, the one up on the top left corner. That's what it looked like when we first started gardening there. And that was the Eastern Avenue garden right across the street from our house. Started out with about 5 families. And then in 2020, you can see on the bottom what it ended up looking like. And we even cut a couple trees down since then, because those gardens have to have a lot more sun than I thought they did. Some of the ones that are right around the edge, even though it's hot and sunny all day long, if they don't get 8 hours of sun, you often can't grow anything in the bed. So we cut down a couple trees, and it really brought that community together. And I don't know if this makes sense, but it kind of softened the neighborhood. Like everybody was fist fighting, something about, it's kind of, I guess I hate to say it's typical, but if you ever have read Ruby Payne's book on understanding the framework for understanding poverty, it talks about how, trying to prove how tough you are is part of the community. And so there was so much fighting going on. But after the garden was there for a couple of years, the kids all came to my house every day. They wanted to play with the chickens, feed the chickens. They wanted to work in the garden, and it just changed the neighborhood. This is our Everett Park garden. The one on the left, it's a little bit of a blurry picture. That was what it looked like in 2017. And it was about a 200 by 200 foot area that we fenced in, and 2/3 of it was on asphalt. And so, as you can see, we've got all kinds of stuff on that asphalt. We got these blue buckets in the back there that we grow stuff up the fence. We had 2 high tunnels there, 2 hoop houses that my husband built, a shed. We sold mums there, and we grew mums. And then we had the garden beds down here, and that was an awesome garden. And then in 2000, I can't see what year that is. Hang on a minute. 2020, 2019, actually, Sarah Wallace from TJ Evans Foundation asked if we would be willing to move our garden from right by Everett Road over to the center of the garden, because that's where they put the new skate park, the Newark skate park. which is a beautiful facility. And so we did that. So we didn't have a garden for 1 year. And then they put up this beautiful fence for us. They gave us 4 water taps and a 30 by 30 concrete pad in there to get us started again, restarted in this garden. So that's what it looks like now. We have a red brick sidewalk that goes down to the middle of the garden that we use as a fundraiser. So we sell memorial bricks, and we sell 12 by 12 paving stones that you can get your logo on for your company for $250. And everything to the left of that red sidewalk, which is about 20 beds, is all for our free U-Pick market. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that in a few minutes. Okay, come on. This is our 6th Street garden. Now, 6th Street, if you may have heard of 6th Street and Growing. It was another nonprofit organization that had the 6th Street garden and the Western Avenue garden. And I went and spoke at one of their meetings, and they were like, "What do you want from us?" And I said, "I don't want anything from you. I just came to tell you what we're doing." And a few years later, they asked if we would merge with them, if they could merge our gardens, because the people who were leading it, and they were all volunteer. One of the man got sick, and so they couldn't really do it. And the board was running it, and everybody's got jobs. So I do this full time. And sometimes that is the problem with not having, that you can't keep a garden going, because it takes a lot of work. And unless somebody's in charge of it, somebody that you're willing to pay to be in charge of it often, it's hard to find somebody who can afford to do that, to spend much time there. So on this site, we have our children's garden program, which I'm going to show you a picture of, but it's for 2 to 5-year-olds and their siblings in the summer. And they come every other Tuesday. This year, we'll probably have it every Tuesday because we've got tons of kids signing up. It's a free program. Last year, they learned about a new fruit or vegetable each week. Their crafts revolved around that vegetable. Their snack revolved around the vegetable. And then they get to pick berries and play in the sprinkler, and just they do garden yoga, which is so adorable. This is the children's garden right here. And you can see all the little kiddos there. They have a great time. They have their own little size garden beds, and they're a little tiny compost bin. And I've had funding from Alfred Foundation, Mauger Foundation, and Lowe's donated or they didn't donate everything, but they give it to us for cost. So everything was, I wouldn't say, it's probably $20,000 to put this garden in, but we have a swing set there, and the parents have to come with them, and they stay, and it's just a great time for the kiddos. Here's some more pictures of the children's garden. You can see them picking berries. The little girl, Roz, is my staff's daughter, the little one in the black t-shirt. And she's pretty sure she's the expert at picking berries. So she's got to show everybody else how to do it. And you can see them playing in the sprinkler there on the left picture. Now, from 2015 to 2019, every time I called the schools to start a new garden, I felt like I was bugging everybody. But in 2019, 2018, we got a grant from the EPA to buy 3 earth cubes, and they are composting machines that are they're like 500-gallon composting machines, and they're at different schools, and one of them is at this greenhouse. But we've been working with Heritage Middle School for quite a while, and they're pre-engineering 8th graders that they had entered in the STEM contest all about composting. And so so in 2018, I got these earth cubes. I fell down the stairs right after I got the earth cube and broke my leg. And so pretty much nothing that I wrote in that grant happened exactly like I said it was going to happen. And so we were going to have an Earth Day, and probably about the beginning of March, I got a call from the EPA director's office, and it was that woman in the front there is the first ever female director of the EPA for Ohio. And they said she wanted to come see our Earth Day program. And I'm like, I'm not going to have an Earth Day program this year. I fell downstairs and gave them the whole sob story. And they said, that's fine. And I got off the phone, and I thought, that is 6 weeks away. We can do anything in 6 weeks. So I called them back and said, we will have this program. So these kids all got to give their STEM presentations at the middle school. The elementary school got to show all their loofah sponges they grew. And then the high school got to show their organic garden that they have over there. And about 3 days before she was coming for this visit, and the schools are super excited about her coming, I got a call from the governor's office, and he wanted to come see this thing. And so you should have seen all the mulching and everything else that was going on as soon as they knew the governor was coming. So he showed up at our event, and within about 3 days, I got a call from the curriculum director, who never thought that she kind of was like, she would give me what I wanted, and help me out, but not as much. So she called me in and she said, we got to have a garden at every school. I said, I know, isn't that great? So it was her idea at that point. So we now have a garden in every elementary in Newark, all 7 of them. See if I can move this box down here. I can't really see you guys very well. There we go. So at that point, we had three schools that were working with us, and now we have 7, which has been a challenge. It's a lot of work. My husband built about almost 200 of those beds you see there for the schools, and for another garden that we had 48 beds for. And we go in and plant in their classrooms in the spring, or in the winter, and then they get to come out and plant stuff. And then there's a time when they come out and they harvest in the fall. And last year we had sweet potatoes growing in every classroom in Newark City schools. We took in 2 organic sweet potatoes in a pan of, like a little tin of soil, and they grew them. And if you know anything about sweet potatoes, they have to have the slips that kind of grow out of them. They're like little plants. If you ever planted sweet potatoes in your classroom as a kid, they get these little plants that grow up out of them. And that's what you have to plant. You have to put those in water, get roots on them, and then you plant those little plants in the ground, not the potatoes. So regular potatoes you plant in the ground and in little pieces, and then those you have to plant the little plant that grows. So Sarah, my garden director, planted 18 of those little seedlings at every garden, all 7 of the gardens, and each school had picked about 100 pounds of potatoes in the fall when they came back. One kid harvested a 5-pound sweet potato that was as big as his head. It was huge. And then we had a tasting day where we, my staff and a bunch of teachers at each school got together, and we peeled all the potatoes, sliced them, and then my husband came in the day of the tasting, and he roasted them all and put cinnamon and sugar on them, and the kids absolutely loved it. Most of them had never seen sweet potatoes before, and so it was an awesome experience. We have a place called the Fruit and Forest Farm. It's a 13-acre piece of wooded property off of East National Drive. If anybody would ever like to go see it, I would love to show it to you. It's amazing. Such a great place to be. So it's just very calm and serene, and it's wonderful. So we've had a lot of different groups come out to help us clear the woods, and we put about a 500-foot meandering brick line walkway through these woods. And we had a first field trip last year where we had like a hay ride and that kind of thing. Now this spring we have 3 groups coming out next Thursday and Friday, and then like a week later, and they're bringing 80 kids with them each time. 80 5th graders from each school are going to be coming out. So we're working on setting up a pollinator garden out there that they can help plant. They're going to help plant shade tolerant plants inside of the woods along the walkway. And we're also I'm going to do a little station on the animals that live in the forest back there. They're going to do bird watching while they're out there that day, and it's going to be super fun. Did you sign up for any of those, CJ? I know you signed up for a couple things.
Yep, I'm going on the field trip with John Clem, and I'm going to be at Wilson on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. The field trip's going to be really nice. Now, this is our greenhouse complex. We started out with the, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see my pointer on there? My mouse pointer? Probably not, huh? So the blue car right there in the parking lot is right in front of the sidewalk that leads to the greenhouse. So that is a 24 by 24-foot greenhouse. All the concrete you see, including the pad that the greenhouse is on, the Board of DD paid for, so that their people would have access. And we have a program called Here We Grow Gardens that the folks that have developmental disabilities, they come from different providers like Kicks and Spark and Lyco, and they're called different places in different cities, but they're day providers where people can go and do activities, and sometimes they offer college classes. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that they do, but one of the things they do is they get to come to the program once a week, and we've got about 75 individuals who come to this program each week. They are learning how to operate the greenhouse, how to grow, how to, what do you call it when you propagate? There you go, that's the word I was trying to think of. They learn how to propagate different plants. These beds over here to your left, there's like a little concrete pad next to the greenhouse with 5 or 6 beds next to it. Every one of the provider companies get one of those beds, and then they plant, they have their sign on it. And so they get to plant their own garden and take home their own vegetables and learn how to grow them and harvest them and maintain them and all that. About a year after the greenhouse was built, this shed that's got the solar panels on it over in the kind of the bottom right of the picture, that was designed by COTC, which is a Central Ohio Technical College. Their architecture or engineering class, whichever one it was, used that as a capstone project. And one of their groups designed that building for us, so those solar panels would be at a specific angle. And they designed this really cool shed. It's very large, and it's got because of the angle of those solar panels, it actually provided a loft upstairs for it. And so then they gave us the supply list we needed to buy everything, and they actually came out and helped build it and gave me a $2,000 grant, which was really cool. I'm like, oh, you're going to do all the work and I get the money? That's kind of fun. Okay, so then last year, well, I guess it's been 2 years now, we got a grant. Everything you see out here is from grants and donations. Every single thing there was grants. This giant building out there is a 30-foot by 60-foot steel framed high tunnel. And we got that through a grant from the NRCS. It's the Natural Resource Conservation Service. And they have these EQIP grants, which is EQIP, where they help to pay for high tunnels like this. So they put about $13,000 into this, and it was probably a $40,000 deal. So I got some other grants. The Board of DD paid for some of the stuff in there. They paid for the furniture and that kind of stuff. And Kiwanis helped me with some of the gravel that we needed. So I'm going to just tell you why they don't let me out in the gardens very often. Can you see at the very back of this high tunnel, it looks like 2 blue boxes on the end, the very end of it? Those are metal covered exhaust fans. You got to go the length of the whole building. On the very end, there's 2 little blue boxes. Well, I went out there to inspect it one day, and I didn't want to walk in the mud, so I kind of walked up close to it, and I was looking at the gravel so I didn't fall again, and I crashed right into one of those with my head and fell completely backwards. Almost knocked myself out walking into one of those things. They're like, you are never coming out here again. So anyway, so that's our greenhouse complex. It's developed into a really cool place to be. The individuals with disabilities are there. A lot of times when they're there, the science teacher from the middle school sends over her kids that are in the engineering department or the pre-engineering classes, and they come over and they plant with their buddies from the Here We Grow Gardens program. And it's just like it's a great way to integrate people into the community that often are kind of secluded from things. This is inside the high tunnel. We have classes in here, and this little unit here on the left is our first aquaponics system. And we started out with about 80 little tiny tilapia in that. They were probably about 1 inch or 2 long. And what happens with aquaponics is the waste from the fish and the nitrogen and everything that's in that water, it all gets pumped in up to the plants. And then when the main container where all those plants are growing gets full of water, it prompts the little drain to open up, and it goes down, and it just recycles the water back all around all day long. And so now our tilapia, we have another big tank too now, and a whole bunch of baby tilapia again that have quadrupled their size in the last month. They were started out about an inch long. Now they're probably 3 inches long, and they're just so much bigger. I can't even believe how big they got. But we have tilapia in that aquaponics system right now. There's 19 of them in there that are about 1 foot long. And we're getting ready to have a fish fry with our board and staff. And what's growing in that high tunnel are loofah sponges. So I don't know if anybody knows this, how many of you know this, but if you've ever used a loofah sponge, I wish I had one here to show you, those kind of rough sponges that are white or kind of yellowish color, about this big, that you buy at the store, those grow in 3-foot gourds, sometimes a lot bigger than that. And so we start these loofah sponges in the classrooms of New York City schools in January and February, because they take 200 days from start to finish, which is longer than watermelon. I mean, it just takes forever to grow these. You have to wait till they're all dried out to pick them. And so we grow them in the greenhouse, and we grow them at all the gardens in the tunnels, the trellis tunnels that we have. So they grow up and they just attach themselves to all the beams up there on the top of the ceiling, and have tons and tons of loofahs in there. Last year we grew about 350 of them. And what we do with those is we make little loofah soap products. I mean, loofah sponges to sell to people, but we also grind it up and make loofah soaps. So that's another little deal that we do. This is our Here We Grow Gardens program, and you can see the different people that come out, and they're standing in front of their beds here on the left. And it has been it's a real hit. There's been a lot of people who, like the little guy on the right side there down on the bottom with the blue shirt on, he was petrified to touch the dirt when he started. And we have a worm farm there too, so we can sell their waste. It's called worm castings. So we bag it up, and then we also make worm tea out of it, which is not drinkable. Can't believe how many people have asked me if they could drink it. I said, it's made out of worm poop. Do not drink it. It's for plants, and it makes plants grow like crazy. But it's just been to watch everybody kind of sort of blossom and grow out there, just to come out of their shells. And it's a great fun time for everybody. And CJ, actually, how long did you work with the Here We Grow Gardens program, CJ? 2 or 3 years? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, a couple years until the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then I broke my jaw. So, but
yeah,
I'm hoping to get back into working with them again, because they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a fun place to be. I've had some people who are like, "Ooh, I don't know if I could do that." I don't know. I think sometimes people are afraid of people with disabilities, and really they're awesome people. They're just people. And some are super funny, some are really serious, some are huggers. And I mean, it's just a great group of people to work with. So let me tell you a few things. That was enough. I've got a couple more pictures in here, but most of it is what I want to tell you, what we did to make money through the years. In the beginning, I told some of you this before we got started. I think I write all the grants, and I've written a lot of grants that were denied due to lack of experience and development of board. And we had to put a bunch of policies in place for United Way's approval. And there's just been, everything is just building on things. When I first started, my board was people that were my friends and church members. And those people did not really have a lot of contacts financially. And that's important too. So you have to, it's they eventually, most of them stayed on for a few years. And then I started getting corporate board members and things like that, where people can tie into financial donations to the company too. We had a CSA for a couple years, and that was tons of work, not a ton of return. We sold food at our own farmers market on East Main Street for quite a while. That was successful. We got to know a lot of people in the community. It was also lots of work for not as much reward as we needed as far as financially. We participated in the Canal Market District Farmers Market for 2 years, and that was successful, and really it kind of did what we wanted it to do. We couldn't really compete with the large growers there, produce growers, and we didn't really want to, but it gave us an opportunity to to get our name out there to hundreds of people who didn't know us before. For about 2 or 3 years, we grew mums out on that Everett Park Garden blacktop that was out there. Can't think of the name of that. And that was a pretty good fundraiser. It was very labor intensive. And then in 2018, we had a big change in our philosophy. Come on. Hold on a minute. Okay. You can't see that very well, can you? Let me stop sharing and I'll come back to this in just a minute and go back on it. Why is it so big? Can anybody figure out how to get that smaller?
Can you go to, okay, looks like you got it. If you go to the
I got
very
it, yeah.
top, yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say the very top, where it says the percent, the very top right corner, there should be of something on your computer. Now, I can't see it here, but there should be something that says sizing.
Well, let's see how the next screen looks. I may have to do something. So
Okay.
what we did, I don't know why I can't get this to go to the next slide.
I don't know. Probably because you're enlarged, probably because you've got
There
it.
you go. Okay. So in 2018, I was trying to think of what we could do to raise more money because it was always, I worked free for the first 4 years and my husband volunteered for free and we had free volunteers who would come and help us. But eventually we had to start paying. I mean, I had to start paying people. I had to start paying me and I had to start hiring people. So our mission, though, is to provide food, education, training, and work opportunities for the residents of Licking County and to improve the quality of life for those who may be living in poverty. And we kind of came to the conclusion that selling food really wasn't what our mission is about. It was to try to raise money, but it didn't raise really enough to do anything. And it was really about feeding the people who are hungry. So we thought maybe if we just weigh what they pick, so they come out and pick it, and that way we don't have to pick it or wash it or box it or stand at a farmer's market. We just have them come and get it. We can include that in our grant writing. So we started doing this at 4 different gardens, and we have scales that we take to every garden. They can donate if they want to. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. Most times they don't. In 2018, we had all these markets. We gave away 2,000 pounds of food in 2018, 4,000 in 2019. And during the pandemic, we gave away 7,000 pounds of food. And 2021, we had a goal of 10,000, but we actually ended up giving away 13,000 pounds of food. And since that time, I think I just turned it the wrong direction. Hold on a minute. Since that time, so this is a picture of some of our farmers markets. They just come and get whatever they want out of the U-pick beds. And then we give them, now we even got bags that have together we grow on, and we give each new customer a bag, and they come every week and they just get whatever they want. So since we started doing that, all of our giving has increased. Our donations have gotten bigger because people respect that we're giving food away. The grants have come in like crazy and sponsorships have increased. So the Licking County Foundation finally funded us. And for the last 2 years, they've given us significant funding without us even asking for it. That's kind of the way they're doing it right now. They just look for people in the community who, nonprofits in the community that need financing, and they give it to them. And I usually ask for 10,000. They actually gave me $60,000 or $15,000 this year. I was shocked. United Way, after probably 5 years of applying, I almost gave up, but after a number of years of applying, they finally funded us. And since the United Way has started funding us, a lot more people are funding us. I think they figure if you've passed their tests and done everything they've asked you to do, then you are above board and doing what you're supposed to. They gave us lots of advice about what to do. And one of the things that we needed to do was to measure outcomes way better. And so we've worked on our surveys. We've made sure that our goals and objectives matched our surveys, and that we were recording everything. There was a couple years that we would do a pre-survey, didn't follow up with the post-survey. And so, everybody finally gets, you have to do that to get funding. And so I write and receive about $150,000 to $200,000 per year in grants. And our budget this year is almost $300,000, which I'm shocked. We now have 8 people that work for us. 2 people are actually from our Here We Grow Gardens program. I got a grant from the Good Shepherd Foundation that works with adults, that funds projects for people with disabilities. They actually gave me enough money to hire 2 people 1 day a week at $10 an hour for the whole year. And so I just sent him, I reapplied hoping that he'll give me that money again, because I don't want to let him go. And I sent him an article that the Board of DD wrote about these 2 people. And he must have read it immediately, because he emailed me right back and he said, now that's a great way to spend our money. So I'm hoping that they'll give us a grant again. So we learned that once your reputation is established and people know you are helping the community and that you do what you say you're going to do, funding will follow after about 8 years. So here's the partners that I know that partnerships are so important. And so these are just some of the people that we get grants from. So for grant funding, specifically for programs, we get money from the Licking County Health Department. That took about 6 years to actually get to know them enough that they came out and wanted to tour, and then they were on board with it. They actually bought that aquaponics system for us for about $4,000 or $5,000. Licking County Board of DD, because of the people that are in their Here We Go Gardens program. Newark City Schools, I told you about that before, and now United Way has funded us for all 3 of our programs. Grant funding for just operations, we get them from Licking County Foundation and the McBay Foundation, which they told me not to mention their name anywhere, so I probably shouldn't have done that. But grant funding for specific items, and this is on the Licking County, a lot of these are on the Licking County Foundation website under other funders. So we get money. We're up to about $15,000 a year from John and Mary Alfred Foundation, the Mauger Foundation. Good Shepherd is the one that funds those 2 girls. Finley Smile is a grant that this couple lost their child due to some kind of disability, and so they fund projects for kids, and so they helped us with the children's garden. Fellers Foundation Community Development Block Grant, that's the city of Newark, and they pay for all of our toilets and our like our porta potties and our sinks, and believe it or not, that's $5,000 or $6,000 a year. That's how much that costs to have a toilet at every garden all year, for the times that the gardens are open. Lowe's Home Improvement gives us like half off of everything. Home Depot gave us a grant this year. And then we have what's called garden sponsors. And so we have a sign that's made up every year with all of our sponsors. And this kind of goes in order from like $35,000 a year down to $1,000 a year. Some of these people pay monthly, which is awesome. That Pure Oil Family doTERRA, they give us $3,500 a month, which is a little, I hope they never stop, because that's almost that's about half of the payroll right now. So that's awesome that they do that. So some of these people only give $1,000 a year, but you get 5 or 6 of those and you got a decent little grant going there, and they get their name on a sign that Newark City Schools makes for us in one of their classes. They do have a sign making class, and they make us these great big banners that we put up on every garden for about $80 a banner, and they're 4 foot by 8 foot. They're huge. And then we started this program called Friends of Together We Grow. It's monthly donations from like 2 or 3 of my kids give to it. Different people it's just kind of grown. They give maybe $10 a month up to $150 a month. That's the range right now that we have. And we set them up in neon or square, whatever our payment thing is at the moment. And it's a monthly deduction. She's taken out every month. And one of the guys gives us, somebody on my board works at Boeing, and he donates $100 a month, and Boeing matches it. So because of him, we get $2,400 a month a year that comes in. And then every like 10 hours he works for Together We Grow, or any volunteering he does, they give us another $500. So I'm really trying to get that word out there to everybody that, you know, you have to find companies that actually will match, or remind everybody to check with their company to see if they'll do any matching. So that's gone from about 5 people in the beginning to 25 donors over the past 5 years. And I feel like I anticipate that it's just going to keep growing. Now, workers come from many different sources, and we still depend on these people. You know, even though we have 8 staff members, we have a lot more gardens. So we still are in desperate need of volunteers to work with us. So we work with people who have assigned community service, such as drug court people, juvenile court. We even had some prisoners that worked with us for one whole summer. Spencer and Courage House, those are drug rehab houses. School community service, National Honor Society kids, Key Club, all those kids need community service hours, and some of the schools require it for graduation. And so you just got to tap into the guidance counselor, guidance office, and they know, and they get the people who are in charge of those groups to come out, and, you know, they contact us. Work groups, every spring and every fall, we do work groups where, like, I think I've got 20 signed up for April and May. And it's businesses, schools, churches, individuals. And so every year that list grows. I put it out on our Facebook page, which I didn't put this on here at all, but social media is very important in what we do. I didn't realize it was so important. And I've got somebody, I did it for a long time, and I'm just a little bit boring. So I have a friend, a girl that works with us now, who she does an awesome job with marketing. And she gets out, she's on social media constantly. She's got our website set up really well. So people can sign up for things online. They can pay for things online. They can donate. You know, that's super important. And then we have miscellaneous groups. Like I have 2 Eagle Scout projects that have been done in our gardens. One were a bunch of trellises that were built. And another one, somebody made us 2 picnic tables and 3 or 4 benches that go in other gardens. So here's some of the people. These are some of the groups that have volunteered with us. And you can see CJ right there. I've just noticed that. I want to put this picture on here. CJ, you're in the top left picture. And I do believe that was a very cold day, if I remember right. So I get people from the community. I get people, these students down here on the bottom left. This was 10, 14, and 15-year-olds who worked with us for a whole summer, and Job and Family Services paid them through a TANF grant, temporary assistance for needy families. And they each got their own garden bed at one of the gardens and took food home to their families regularly. One of these girls in this pic, well, she's not in this picture that I can see, but she was sleeping in a tent for the summer in her grandma's backyard. So they were basically homeless. They could go in and take showers, but they were sleeping in a tent. They got to go to the farmer's market and work one night, and I had them, I hooked them up with different vendors at the market so they could kind of see what different people do to make money, and how they're, you know, people do crafts and they grow vegetables and they make jelly and all kinds of stuff. And so that was a fun time. Then this is the ladies in the red shirts. Can't tell where they're from, but I know that was a corporate group that came out that day. And then the bottom right group, this was a spring break week. And I had a couple people who were coming through this program called CCMEP at Job and Family Services. And it's for adults with that are 18 to 25. They have to qualify financially, and there has to be a minor in the home. And then they got paid by Job and Family Services, these 2 guys on the left. And then there's 3 boys on the right there that all were assigned to work with us from juvenile court for the whole week of spring break. And they were not happy to be there. They wanted to sleep in, and they were mad. They worked and they did fine. And then on Saturday, we had a group come in from Zanesville that were starting a community garden. They wanted to learn how to do it. So I did a training for them. And these 3 boys, that whole group of people were there at this luncheon. And we talked about why people do community service, the different types of community service people do. And it was an awesome conversation between all of the different groups that were there. And that boy with the afro, at the end, he stood up and he said, "I just want to say something." Said, "This was the last place on earth I wanted to be this week." but I made a bad choice and I had to do community service. And he said, I just want you to know that this was one of the best weeks of my life. And I just felt like it's not just me that thinks that, it's other people that are thinking that too. And that was awesome. That's what happens a lot of times. People come because they have to, and they stay because they want to. And, you know, once they get out there and you start working in the dirt and the chemicals in the soil, you know, start working with your serotonin, and, you know, that's an actual thing, that chemicals in soil increase serotonin in your brain. And so, you know, it's a wonderful thing to watch them kind of come out of their shells and just live a whole different life. CJ asked me to have one of my staff that is my program director, and she wasn't able to be here today, but Sarah started with us coming through Job and Family Services, and she had to work a certain amount of hours to get food stamps and whatever else. You know, if they get money, they have to work 20 hours a week. If they just get services, they have to work 20 hours a month, I think it is. And she just disappeared one day, never came back. Then about a year later, they said they had somebody else who would like to work with us again. And it was Sarah, and I almost didn't hire her back. So I just thought she's just gonna bug out again, you know, without telling us. She stayed. She's been with me about 4 years now. She had a 3-month-old baby at the time, and she was living in a very bad relationship. And once she started working with us, she moved into the Salvation Army and got out of that. She then, they helped her get in a rapid rehousing program. Helped her get an apartment. And I got a call one day that they were looking for people that might be interested and might qualify for Habitat for Humanity houses. And so Sarah ended up getting a Habitat house, and I nominated her for the Hope Award with United Way, and she actually won that because she's just like a story of hope and renewal. You know, it's changed her whole life, and she's a very responsible person now. She has turned into a pretty good speaker. Her daughter is 5 years old now, and she's a great mom and is making great choices. She's in counseling now, and she calls me her work mom. She's a great girl. I'm very proud of her. And I know a lot of that had to do with her time at Together We Grow. Yes.
I'm going to jump in here just because we're pressed for time.
Okay.
And this is magnificent. The impact I think that you've had on other folks, but particularly you sharing the impact that this has had on you and they have had on you, and that it goes both ways. And that is a really nice thing to hear. I do want to point out a couple of things. There's been a link put in the chat for a Padlet, which if you click on that, folks, you can see we've got it started. A Padlet's sort of like a Post-it note board, but information about community gardens in other places in Ohio. And if you know of other spaces, please add them. And that link stays live, so you can keep adding and coming back to it.
I have a couple here too, from one in Columbus, which is the first one I went to, the Franklinton.
Yes, Franklinton Farms.
On there. Yeah.
Fantastic.
I'm going to close this.
Farms and foodstrong.org in Cleveland. Franklinton Farms I'm familiar with from my time at Methodist Theological School in Ohio and Delaware. Okay. Some students have done some work there. I have a colleague doing an internship at Franklinton now. They do some magnificent work for folks in marginalized communities. But we've just got a few minutes, but I want to open it up for folks. If you have questions for Pam, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask those questions. And also check out that Padlet and contact these places that are on there, or list ones that you know of in your local area.
I hope I haven't taken too much time. I'm sorry about that if it ran over.
No, the stories of connections are great, Pam. That's part of the work of justice, is hearing how lives have been affected, and particularly the lives of those of us who are trying to do good for others are impacted in ways that we never anticipated. And I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Has his hand up, Jerry.
Oh, how will we get a copy of this recording? It's a wonderful story and I want to have it.
Oh, thank you, Jerry.
Jerry, the recording will be up on you Joe's YouTube channel in the
Okay.
next couple of days. So
Okay.
it's YouTube UU Justice Ohio.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We want to encourage everybody to look around your area and to participate in community gardening.
So what you have done, Pam, is just absolutely amazing. I wonder if you have ever considered hiring yourself out as a consultant for people who would like to, build what they're doing with community gardens. Have you ever,
Yeah.
or do you feel like what you did was so unique that it can't?
Oh, no, I love going to talk. I love to teach people about how to start community gardens. I've done out at Denison, I've done some a training on how to write grants, like some easy ways to write grants. Not easy, but ways to make it more efficient. The first place I started writing grants, I was at Mental Health America, and I didn't realize how important it was to have like all the documents where you know where they are, because everybody wants to see all kinds of stuff, and if you have to go digging for them every time, it makes it hard. Yeah, so I love doing that kind of stuff.
I think that's huge. I think that would be so valuable for so many people. I know for the projects that I'm on, I know it would be helpful.
I'd come up to Cleveland if you just let me know when you want me to come. I have tons of family up there.
You know what? And that actually, you had your contact information up a minute ago. Would you mind
Yep.
putting that up again?
Yep.
And I'll
tell you what, if you just go to togetherwegrowgardens.org, that's how you get to it.
Okay.
I mean, I can open that back up. I can share my screen again and get back to it. I don't
Okay.
sound like I'm not being
I can get
cooperative.
it. No. And it looks like Pastor Hank just added here. All right, thank you. I'm going to do just a quick screenshot of that just to make it easy.
There we go.
Beautiful.
Yeah, feel free to text me or call me, or you can go to the website and there's a
Okay.
contact
That's
page
awesome.
on there.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much. So you know what, the other thing that, and I think that Pastor Hank has added this as well. When we choose topics for any given month, it's always driven by what people are most interested in, the work that people are doing right now and the support that they need and the the avenues that they're going down. So it would be fantastic if people could in chat drop any ideas you have for what you want to see in future programs. Or if you want to join the Google group, and we can put the link into that, you can start, show up coming up to our Monday planning meetings and make suggestions there. And because that's what drives this whole thing. We don't have, like we have a plan for next month, but we don't have a long-term agenda. It's really just driven by what you all, by people are interested in doing and what they need support with. And it looks like the Google group is there.
Jenny, have a question?
Oh, yes.
I do. Pam, did you ever run into any issues with like the locals in the community that are around, like the neighborhoods? You're bringing people into that space to do the gardening projects, but did you ever get pushback or concerns from resistance?
Definitely have. Yeah, we were going to put we were given some property to use out in Little Texas, which is a community in Newark, and they were not happy that they hadn't been told about it, and we had the ground plowed, and they got a petition and booted us right out of there.
Wow.
So that was okay. I mean, that happens. Everything's not going to be just rosy every time. We had a garden at the Yes Club one year, and they just didn't want to make the kids come out and participate. And we didn't need extra work. We wanted to do it for the kids' benefits. So they have since come and helped us at different gardens, which has been awesome. So, we've had a few things that started. We were going to have one at Salvation Army. Well, we actually had it for one summer that they had some boxes, and the access to those boxes, those beds that they had wasn't very easy to get to. And so that kind of fizzled out. And so Yeah, we've had some that weren't as successful as others. I think that was the only one. And the neighbors, though, haven't seemed to mind as much, you know, like once we were there and they know who we are and they know that and I lived in the neighborhood for most of the time. The kids at Everett Park, when we first started there was a skate park there. It was just a bunch of old nasty pieces of skateboard equipment, you know, like ramps and things like that, that was
Mhm.
covered in graffiti. And they were not happy that that place was being moved, but they ended up moving it somewhere else and put some good stuff around it. And I think they liked it after a while, but we're like, we're just trying to grow food here, kids.
So you become sort of a neighborhood enhancement then, is that right?
That's what the hope is. Yeah, that it would become a little more family friendly and you know, I didn't know that's what was going to happen, but it is what happened everywhere we went pretty much. Unless they had a thing to kick us out of the neighborhood, then that never happened. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
This is, again, magnificent. I just want to be mindful and respectful of everybody's time. I appreciate you sticking around for a little bit longer. Pam, again, thank you for sharing personal stories. That really makes a difference and strikes hope in the hearts of those of us who want to transform this world into a better place for everybody.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, a few more links in the chat, including a registration link to register for May and our future events. There's a drop-down list when you register for the Zoom to get that. Next month, we're working on talking about solar energy. So that's what we've got on tap for May 22nd. And again, if you want to suggest any topics, things that are burning, join the Google group or send an email to our uuenvironmentaljustice@gmail.com email address. And I want to close now with these words from Naomi Klein. And she writes, "How do we help the most? How do we fix this broken world? The task is clear: to create a culture of caretaking in which no one and nowhere is thrown away, in which the inherent value of people and all life is foundational. The holistic leap we need is within our grasp. You, me, everyone, we were all made for this moment." Thank you for being here with us. Be well, be safe, be kind. We'll see you next month. Or at our planning meetings. Send us an email. Good night.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
You're welcome. Thanks, CJ.